Welcome to the first session of the MINEX Europe Forum, where we'll explore the latest advancements and strategies driving Europe's push toward raw materials independence. As Europe embarks on its green and digital transformations, securing access to critical raw materials has become crucial. At the heart of this endeavour is the EU's Critical Raw Materials Act, a pivotal policy aimed at ensuring Europe's self-reliance in essential raw materials for clean energy, advanced manufacturing and beyond. With ambitious 2030 targets, the Act aims to boost domestic production, processing and recycling while reducing dependency on non-EU countries. Building on these efforts, the recent Draghi Report proposes an even broader approach, advocating for a comprehensive EU strategy that covers the entire raw materials value chain, from mining to recycling. It also calls for increased collaboration with global partners, as well as investments in research and innovation. Together, these initiatives aim to fortify Europe's resilience, ensuring a sustainable and competitive raw materials supply chain. Now please join me in welcoming the presenters of today's session, who will delve into these developments and share insights on driving Europe's raw materials independence.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished friends, Your Excellency, if I've missed anyone with an honorific, I apologize to you. It's a great pleasure to be here and always happy to be in Prague. The Czech industry has a long and very, very impressive history as not only members of Euromines, but as contributors to Europe's mining heritage. We hope also you will be contributors to Europe's mining future. That really, I think, is the theme of our first panel, to see what lies ahead of us. We have a very distinguished panel. Thank you for putting it back. Maria João Pereira is from the Ministry of Environment and Energy of Portugal. Jaroslav Rief is from the Ministry of Industry and Trade of the Czech Republic. Oliver Richards from the UK Department of Business and Trade. And last but not least, Alexi Salo is from GTK, the renowned Geological Survey of Finland. I am your opening act, and I shall go straight into it with the assistance of our technical team. Thank you very much. Great. The video mentioned the Critical Raw Materials Act. It's, I suppose, a defining set of words for today. In itself, it doesn't really mean very much, so what we have to understand is what happens next. Why should you listen to me, first of all? Who on earth is this person in front of you? Euromines is the recognized voice of the mining industry in Europe. We represent just about everything that is produced in Europe today. And yes, we do produce things in Europe today. We have numerous members, ranging from very large companies such as Anglo American and Rio Tinto to very small entities. We have one member of one man, and we have one national association that has a two-man operation. So we represent absolutely everybody in all shape and form. We do minerals, we do metals, we do integrated producers, we do traders, we do absolutely everything in the metals and mineral space in Europe. And occasionally we do make sense. So why should you listen to me? Basically, whether you believe in climate change or not, what we use, what we need today has changed from what some people still have as their mental picture of mining. 300 years ago, we did lead, we did coal, we did a bit of copper and a few other things that we used for basic fabrication. As technology evolved, we used different things. We don't use the same things we used 20 years ago, let alone 300 years ago. And we talk in terms of the transition to a new way of powering our lives, the new way towards a green society, a new way towards a more modern society. Use any adjectives you wish. We're using new materials to make new things. Where do we get them from? We all know this story. It's a little bit disingenuous, I think, the next couple of slides, because there's, as we all recognize, considerable opacity in China and in other locations. So some of these figures are mainly indicators. So it's quite obvious. The vast majority of what we've termed critical raw materials come from China. Relatively little comes from Europe. It gets worse. Not only are we in Europe dependent upon other people for lots of the things we use to make the things we want to make, China increasingly has dominated not only the supply of the raw materials, but then what happens next, the fabrication, even the recycling in many cases. So whilst Europe 15 years ago had a lead, for example, in battery technology and was competitive in renewable energy by and large, that's not the case today. The Chinese are leagues ahead of us. So if we look at exploration, this is probably the least convincing of the slides, and that's not why I put it in German. It was a German colleague who did it for me. If we look at that, we'd see NAFTA, for example, or whatever they're calling it this week, represents a very large slice of exploration expenditure. Add that to Australia and you've got half of all exploration expenditure in respect of critical raw materials. We don't know the correct numbers for China. They must be spending vast amounts of money. But all I can do is represent to you what is available publicly. S&P, for example, this morning published a document on exploration expenditure on critical raw materials. Very interestingly, it tells us that expenditure in 2023 was less still than it was in 2012. We're nowhere close to what we were spending 10 years ago, 15 years ago in terms of exploration. It is a major issue. Most of that spending from particularly the United States is very, very recent as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act and allied legislation and initiatives. The amount of money is enormous, and that money is being spent in all sorts of jurisdictions and, to my mind, is beginning to yield results. But we need to focus on exploration investment. What are we doing in the European Union? We do have a geological endowment. We have far more qualified people than me to talk about that. We have a geological endowment. We also have the ability to extract critical raw materials as secondary materials, not only from waste, but also from things we're already producing. Bauxite, for example, iron ore. We need to refocus what we do. The important thing to understand is not only are we good at processing things, good at making things, we do have the potential for mineral extraction in the European Union at a far greater scale than we can deliver today. There is a question that we need to discuss at some point today, which is what do we do between now and then? If we manage to achieve part of our goals, what do we do in between? I don't see a session that necessarily talks to that. Perhaps we can have some discussion about that in a little later. The Critical Raw Materials Act, I don't think I need to define for you. It's a good step in the right direction. The idea is to somehow address the crisis that Europe is facing. The slides will all be available to you. You don't need to take photographs. No need to panic, and I'll send them to you if you really want them. So what we are good at in Europe, as represented by lots of organizations here, is we have the know-how, technological know-how, implementation know-how. I did a project with the European Commission a few years ago as part of a dialogue with Canada, and we mapped the trade flows between Canada and the European Union. So quite obviously, Canada is a resource-rich country, so enormous flow of goods going in one direction, raw materials, but a huge flow going the other way from Europe to Canada in terms of know-how, technology, mining consultancy, mining services, equipment. Europe has that knowledge. That should be the platform that we work from. We're really good at it. I can give you lots of anecdotes, but the point is Europe is renowned in the world for its ability to deliver technological solutions. In R&D and in innovation, we lead the world. So, as I said, a first step in the right direction. Europe got used to going to the supermarket with a credit card. Europe, in its mercantilist's view, would go to the supermarket, or Europe, define it as you will, by the European Union or the continent of Europe, got used to just buying what it wanted because it could. It was the greatest apostle of globalism in the world, and the world has changed. The consequences of what Europe were doing, outsourcing pollution whilst importing raw material, denigration of Europe's productive capacity, a lack of investment inwards, are now coming home to roost. Of course, history teaches us that we generally understand things after they've already happened. The question is, how do you respond to it? So lots of benchmarks have been set. Will we achieve them? No, of course we won't. Let's be realistic. We won't achieve any of the benchmarks on this slide, but we will make progress towards them. The important thing is to achieve something. We need to reduce our dependence upon people who do not believe in the same things that we do. That's the whole idea. We do not want to be held hostage in the same way as Europe was held hostage by the energy crisis arising from the conflict in Ukraine. Again, it's happening already. I'm not a prophet of doom, I'm just a realist. We have to address the problems we have in the right way. One of the problems we have is that Europeans are very well educated, very aware, very sympathetic, very sensitive people. I could put that differently. I once talked to a Canadian investor who said, Europe's a bloody difficult place to work in. You've got too many people, you've got too many borders, too much history, and too many languages. It's just too difficult to work there. So we have a European Union that's supposed to somehow knit all this together. So you have different traditions, different histories, different interpretations of laws in different jurisdictions. And we're all supposed to work together within a single market. The most hallowed thing of the European Union is the single market. We need to make it work. Forget about philosophy, make the bloody single market work. It's not politics, it's what we do every day. You want freedom of movement. You want to invest in other countries. You want to succeed. You want to invest in education. You want a future for your children. Make the single market work. And one of the ways you do that is by investing at the same time as regulating. Draghi, who is a word you all should know backwards, sideways, upside down, is pointed us in the right direction. We need massive investment in the right places. We don't need a Marshall Plan. We don't need a New Deal. We don't need a wall of money just somehow making everything better. We need focused investment in the right time, in the right place. We can't just buy our way out of the problem. We're not going back to the supermarket just with a bigger credit card or a bigger credit limit. We need to invest, not buy. We need to focus on our industry and let it work, let it breathe. And that's what we mean by things like framework conditions. So there's a nice list of points here. You can take them away in the slide. The long and the short of it is we need to do better. We need to have better focus on what we actually need to do. And in my business, in your business, that means focusing on the delivery of critical raw materials and strategic raw materials in the right time frame, in the right way. I talk about the single market. I talk about what are we doing? Why should we have copper in Europe? Is it intrinsically different from copper from Peru? Are Peruvians bad people? No. But do we attach a value to what we do? That's the bottom line. Do we attach a value to what we do in Europe? Do we want to intrinsically have European copper because we believe we can set a standard that we want the rest of the world to follow in terms of the delivery of that copper, in terms of efficiency, environmental stewardship, health and safety, and so forth? Excellence, excellence, excellence is what we need to deliver in Europe. So where are we today? What does the Critical Raw Materials Act actually have to do? Well, it's off to a slow start. There's been a call for strategic projects. I think 170 projects were put forward. They're going to start assessing them next month. Will they be able to deliver Will they be able to deliver a list of projects this year? No. They were aiming to do it. That was the idea. They won't, but they will deliver it in the first quarter of next year. We need to invest in exploration. Exploration is a difficult business. I'll spare you the anecdotes, but I think one very, very good example is some years ago I was at a gold conference, I think it was in Denver, and the head of exploration and development from Goldfields was there. And he said, I invested last year in 25 different junior mining companies. I expect at least 22 of them to fail. I only need one of them to succeed and I will make money. That mentality doesn't exist today. We need to change that. We need people to invest in exploration with more understanding, not only of risk, because there's far too much focus on risk. We need to trust our industry to understand risk and reward, otherwise why are we doing it? There needs to be more focus on opportunity, and that's what we're lacking today. We will not revive exploration unless people wish to invest in it. OPEX is a very interesting question. I'm slightly running out of time and setting a bad example, so I'll hurry up. We need to work on OPEX, and that means things, particularly power costs. We need to work on European energy costs. That's a particular issue. Right, I'm going to accelerate a little bit. What do we want? More joined up thinking in the Commission. We've got an executive vice president, we hope, when the committee hearings finish and the new Commission comes into being. We have, it seems, a more focused approach to raw materials with a greater placing of raw materials in the center of what the Commission thinks and does. But we cannot have contradictions in policy. We cannot have contradictions in implementation. Big conversation for another day. Increased access to finance, we know that. So what do? We either do nothing, let the Green Deal be made in China, ignore all the bad things that may bring, or we can actually build some projects in Europe. That's what Euromines is advocating. We need to do it in the right way. We need to secure a real license to operate, something that means something that gives value, not something that is just an obstacle. We need a competitive framework that's understood, that's transparent, that's fair, that truly reflects the single market. And most of all, we need to recognize excellence. We're really good at what we do. Lots of you in this room lead the world in what you do. Be proud of it, sell your services, and people will invest. And I've made it in time. Amazing. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So may I introduce, shall I call you Your Excellency, Maria João Pereira from the Ministry of Environment and Energy of Portugal. So,
okay, okay, good morning. Thank you so much. Oh, it's not this presentation. That's the end. Let's see. I don't know if I can have my slides. Okay, thank you very much for your for the invitation to be here. It's a pleasure to be here, and hopefully, I'm here to speak a little bit about the role of Portugal in this field in mining, and as very brilliantly my previous speaker explained very well. We have a huge task to do, and we all need to do our part. So let's see if this works. Not working. Okay. So I think I don't need to go briefly through these slides because it was already very well explained. We all know, we are all aware of the needs that we have currently. Actually, my office is about energy and mineral resources in Portugal. This was always associated to energy and mineral resources for a long time, but I think it's the first time we have a mining engineer in the head of the office. So I'm very happy to be part of this transformation. So it doesn't work. I'm having trouble in changing. Okay, so let's move. So from Portugal, as possibly you all know, we have mining, a very old history in mining. We were already mining in Iberia, in Portugal, since the Roman times, since the Roman occupation. So we have a long legacy of mining. Because territory is highly geological, geotechnic, and geodynamic diversity, has a lot of diversity, which is favorable to geological settings for the formation of mineral resources. So despite the fact that we are a very small territory, we have a lot of diversity. So we have a lot of different types of deposits and geology, and exploitation of minerals in the past included gold, copper, tungsten, uranium, feldspar, and many others that in minor quantities. We also have a country which has overseas exploration and exploitation minerals. So we had a lot of mines spread all over the Africa and South America mainly, and our long tradition in mining left us around 2,000 abandoned mine sites. This means that we also have a lot of mining legacy, and we have a program for recovery of these mining sites, and we have already recovered more than half of these mining sites. Were already environmental recovered, and this is important because we need to correct what was not properly done. Of course, it was not on purpose. It was something that we did not know about. Now we need to recover all these sites. Now, what is happening today in Portugal? So I think that we can say that Portugal continues to be a mining country. We have, in terms of legal and regulatory framework, we have a mining law, new mining law since 2015. We have regulations that were set up in 2021. We have a legal institution framework which is composed by three different institutions. It's a little bit complex. We have the Directorate General of Energy and Geology, which is the Portugal Mining Authority. We have a National Geological Survey, and we have a company, a public company, which takes care of the mining legacy site remediation. Then we have a system which we have a unique permitting. So we have a permitting which is together the environmental part and the industrial part. We don't have separate permittings for these activities. And we have also in our legislation mandatory mine closure planning with associated financial guarantee, which means that we will not have in the future those problems that we are facing now. Regarding human resources and infrastructures, I think that we can say that we have qualified human resources, and this is one of the things that is important. We kept the academic and research infrastructures through the years, so we still have mining degrees in our country. And this is very important to support industry and to support with human resources. But also we have another types of infrastructures, like we have abundant renewable energies and incentive to auto-consumption. So we incentive our companies, our industry to produce their own energy through renewable energies. And we also have a good infrastructure of its accessibility and transports, ports, railways, and roads. So this makes a proper setting for developing mining projects. Regarding transparency and social license, well, this has become a real problem in the recent years. We have a lot of we have difficulty to have public acceptance from people, despite the fact that we publish all the exploration and exploitation applications for concession in our website, in a way of doing it transparently so that people can access to information. We have also in our regulatory framework stakeholder engagement through mandatory public sessions. So anyone who wants to have a mining project in Portugal needs to have these public sessions which allow the communication between the promoters and the population, local population. We have also a permitting process with mandatory public consultation, and we have a framework for benefits to be shared with local stakeholders. Of course, this is important to obtain social license. It also makes some difficulties to move forward the projects, and we need to work a little bit more on this to make this operational, because sometimes this can also be a cause for some delays. Regarding mine activity in Portugal nowadays, we in last figures from our statistics office says that we have around 2,000 workers employed related with mining activity, which is about 4% of Portuguese working force, 5 million euros of the gross value added, which is about 2.3 Portuguese GDP, 1 million euros per year of production in mines, quarries, and mineral and spring waters, and around 6 million per year in production of exports of geological resources and sales in the main target industries. So it's a considerable, important activity, economic activity in Portugal. We have around 123 mine concessions, 20 exploration contracts, 47 mining concessions requests, 107 exploration contracts requests, and main minerals exploited nowadays are copper, zinc, lead, silver, tungsten, feldspar, and lithium. So this is our, let's say, our picture, our photo. There is some let's say, a lot of requests to be delivered. There was some, let's say, problems in the authority that delivers these concessions. We are now working to fasten this process so that all the promoters can receive faster answers to their requests. Okay, so regarding critical raw materials in Portugal, so I already mentioned we have copper, and we are producing. I think we are the second producer in copper in Europe after Spain, and we are mainly exporting to Finland for smelting. So we only have exploitation and processing. We do not have locally smelter for copper. We also have tungsten, producing tungsten, and I think there are 2 mines of tungsten in Europe. I'm not sure about this, but we are mainly exporting to United States and Austria. Concerning feldspar is mainly used in ceramics, and we are exporting that for Spain and Belgium, but most of the feldspar is used in Portugal in this case. And of course we have lithium, a small quantity though, but we are already exploiting some lithium enriched from pegmatite concentrate. We are now in the process of developing lithium-ion battery value chain ecosystem. So we have now in the pipeline 3 advanced stage projects. 2 of them already have the environmental declarations, so almost with finishing the permitting. Another one is a little bit more delayed. And we have 2 projects of lithium refineries going on, one in the south and another one more north in the country. Concerning the copper, the zinc, the tin, the plum, and the silver, we have part of the Iberian Pirate Belt. As you know, it's a region, geological region which covers Portugal and Spain. We have Neves Corvo mine, which is a very, I think it's the largest copper underground mine in Europe, and one of the largest in the world, operating since 1986. and it's now planning its expansion to a new deposit. So it's still, although it was supposed to be for 20 years, it's now working for more than 40, and it's still it's exposed is projecting to be expanded. We also have Aljustrel mine, which reopened in 2007. It's a very old mine, and is also expanding to another deposit. So these are old mines that are having new projects. And we also have a new project, which is Lagoa Salgada, which is still on the permitting process. So we don't know if it's going to at the end to succeed. But if it goes, everything goes okay, if the project is sound and has all the needed technical and environmental qualifications, it is expected to start around 2026. Well, tungsten is a very, very old mine, and it has been operating from 1800, so very, very old, but it's still exploiting, and it has an additional expectancy lifetime of 20 years. And we have another project going on, which is also an old mine that is now with a new exploration project. I will ask also to talk a little bit about construction and industrial minerals, because this is also a very important activity. We have 685 active licenses for these construction and industrial minerals. So these industrial minerals are mainly aggregates, cement and lime, and ornamental rock marble. I point to this new building in the Perlman Performing Arts Center in New York. It's a landmark in New York, the most recent landmark in Europe, and we are very proud that this building has all the facade is in Portuguese marble, but most important than that is that what allowed this was that all this marble was digitized. So new technologies are helping us in Portugal to develop the chain value, to develop the value that is in this case in our ornamental rock. It is a very interesting project. And also to talk a little bit about the industrial minerals. It's also a very important a very important mineral resource, because we have also a lot of ceramic industry, and this is supporting our ceramic industry. So moving forward, I'm at the end of my presentation. I hope the chairman can give me a few more minutes. Okay. So what we are now doing, we need to implement a new national exploration program. So we have stopped for a few years, and it's time to give another boost. We are promoting international tenders for granting exploration contracts. We expect to do it very soon, before the end of the year. We are planning to develop a national mineral resources land planning instrument, because this will solve part of the problems that we have with social license and permitting. If we can have a plan where we can put together all these interests and solve them in a certain way. And we also are launching a new ID program, Energy Plus Science, which will include, supported by the government, which will include research in raw materials, chain values for clean tech and circularity. We are also updating mining law regulations to improve process efficiency, strengths institutional human capacity, something that was in the last years was let it behind, and we need to have human capacity in our institutions in order to provide more fast process. Implementation of one-stop shop for streamlined permitting and full digitalization of the process. This is something which is also going on. And we need to have a very good communication strategy to better inform citizens and facilitate social license to operate. Okay, thank you very much. I'll leave you with this sentence from our UN Secretary General, which is António Guterres, and was our former government in Portugal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Jaroslav from the Czech Ministry will now tell us about what's happening in the Czech Republic.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let me to welcome you in Prague. My name is Jaroslav Rajf. I'm from Ministry of Industry and Trade, and I'm responsible for state mineral policy at the ministry. Major impulse for the start of activities in the field of raw materials exploration was the approval of the Critical Raw Minerals Act, which came in force 23rd May 24. For national exploration program, we would like to dedicate 34 million of euros. And our state companies which work on that project, they submit this exploration program for approval to the Czech government. The aim of this 5-year state intervention will be to verify indication, identified exploration areas, define mining areas, obtaining licenses, and subsequently approach the potential investors. However, the above funding is insufficient. In order for the Czech Republic to catch up with the long-standing underinvestment in geological exploration, we can say practically the last 30 years there was no drilling exploration program, research and optimization of mining or treatment and processing method for critical and strategic raw materials. There is need to be done. Originally, we asked about such a budget, our government, as a part of a new development plan. Unfortunately, it was not approved, so we would like to ask about such a funding for next years. An amount of 6 billion crowns, it's approximately 240 million euros. We need primarily for geophysical and borehole geological exploration of critical, strategic and construction raw materials. We would like to focus this exploration money mainly to the area Erzgebirge, then to the Cretaceous formation of Czech Massif, and also to the Czech Moravian highland. An amount of 2 billion Czech crowns, which is approximately 80 million euros, for the development of extraction, recycling and substitution technologies for critical and strategic raw materials in the sense of Critical Raw Minerals Act. This future investment should result in the discovery of entirely new deposit of strategic and critical raw materials, what we expect in the depth 0.5 or 2 kilometers below the surface. As was mentioned, my predecessors, Portugal is country rich for mining site. Unfortunately, we in Czech Republic, we have no mine. We have no mine for critical strategic raw materials except feldspar. Concerning feldspar, we are country exporting feldspar to many European areas and all over the world. But we can say we have now two important projects in pipeline. First one is lithium. It is about Synovec deposit. Feasibility study is before completion. Semi-operational tests have been carried out. We expect to produce lithium chloride or carbonate in the quality for the battery industry. The second big project which we have in Czech Republic is manganese project. It is about secondary manganese deposit represented by waste from the old pyrite mining tailings in Chvaletice. Feasibility study is completed, semi-operational tests have been carried out, and we expect to start production of 5,9 manganese soon, especially for the battery industry. But Czech Republic has many indications of other critical and strategic materials, but their exploration is at the early stage and feasibility studies have not been carried out. And now we have no one commodity when we expect mining, as was mentioned in the sense of Critical Raw Minerals Act, to produce within 3 years. But we have perspective indication of critical raw materials, for example, the barite, feldspar, fluorite, graphite, copper, and tungsten. I must mention a few sour numbers. The Czech Republic has proven raw material source of coking coal. Coking coal is a critical raw materials in the Czech Republic and Europe. The Czech Republic has extensive deposit of coking coal, but in the context of reducing CO2 emission, the Czech government is retreating from the mining. This Brussels recognized critical raw materials and coking coal deposits are being closed down at a rapid pace. Between 2013 and 2023, the Czech Republic has incurred a total loss about 100 to 150 billion in Czech Republic, taking into account the coking coal reserves written off of previously conducted exploration at today's prices. If we calculate the effect generated by the subsequent processing of coking coal and the coke subsequently produced in use in the closed metallurgical value chain in the following years, 25-30, the total loss, or rather the damage incurred, can be estimated 300 or 400 billion euro. This is despite the fact that coking coal can nowadays be processed and utilized with technologies that can be categorized without exaggeration as a green mining technology, with flue gas scrubbing similar to the municipal solid waste incinerators. In the future, we expect the approach to source of critical raw materials, such as coking coal, should be completely reassessed, and strategic project for reuse of selected coking coal deposit in the Czech Republic should be developed. About uranium ores. The Czech Republic has extensive reserve of uranium ores. If prices were rise 20%, the Czech Republic would become the 10th country in the terms of geological reserve of uranium ores. Uranium ores, whether in northern Bohemia calc or Czech Moravian crystalline complexes, are accompanied by the critical raw materials as zirconium or rare earth elements, the mining and extraction of which would make sense together with the extraction of uranium deposit. In new modern uranium ore exploration methods if the new modern uranium exploration methods are used, medium or large uranium deposit can be expected to be discovered. Given the gradual increase in the price of uranium ores and the Czech Republic's future orientation towards nuclear power, it would be economically very profitable for Czech Republic to create the closed uranium ore processing value chain. On the end of my presentation, in the last slide, I would like to give a few information for potential foreign investors. The Czech Republic is a stable economy and encourage foreign investment rating A-. New opportunities for opening up critical resources deposit are offered by the design and promotion of strategic projects in the sense of CRMI, which speed up the permitting process and environmental impact assessment process. These both processes are accompanied by, this public negotiation with local authorities, which could be time-consuming process. The Czech Republic supports the development of the circular economy and welcomes the transfer of technologies for the separation, beneficiation and extraction of critical raw materials from mining, industrial and municipal waste, including municipal solid waste and coal ashes. The Czech Republic welcomed the transfer of technologies that substitute the most desirable type of critical raw materials. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Mark, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you. I thought let's offer a perspective from the UK, a close partner of the EU, what we're doing on critical minerals and mining in particular. So just taking a step back, first of all, the big picture for the UK, we have a new government that's been in place since the summer. And last week, we launched consultation on a new industrial strategy. So that's a big focus of our government and of my department, the Department for Business and Trade. And we're looking to set a vision throughout to 2035 of what the UK can offer in terms of industry and industrial growth. So there are 8 sectors, and you'll see on the screen, advanced manufacturing, clean energy industries, defense, digital and technologies, that all of these in many different ways depend on the mining sector and critical minerals. So those are crucial inputs to what we're trying to achieve. Our government's putting a lot of weight behind this. So we've got Microsoft Chief Executive, Claire Barkley, heading up an industrial grouping, Industrial Strategy Advisory Council, we call it. And the purpose is that we in government want to develop this strategy together with people in industry to understand how we can make this thing work together. And we're establishing a national wealth fund to contribute and to provide capital to help some of those initiatives get underway. So onto the mining space, we've been developing, as has the European Union over the last few years, our own approach to critical minerals and mining. You can see on the screen a few of the key strategies that we've been working on, going back over a few years, not as many years as perhaps we should have done, but certainly back to the early 2020s, developing net zero strategies. But the key milestones really in 2022, when we launched our critical minerals strategy, and alongside that, the Intelligence Centre, that's run for us by our Geological Survey, and has identified for us our list of critical minerals. And our approach really has been around both domestic capacity, growing what we can develop and deliver in the UK context, and working with international partners at the same time. If you're interested, what we're doing right now is we're working through a new strategy for the new government. And I would say, just in very simple terms, what we've done is set out a very clear vision for where we want to go. The next stage is going to be all about how we deliver that and make it a practical reality. And so later this year, there'll be a new strategy. There'll be a new critical minerals list that goes with that accompanies it. So just sort of delving a bit into the mining sector in the UK, and I think you can broadly see the map of the UK. I don't know if you can see the dots, but I'll talk them through. We have interesting prospects in lithium, tin and tungsten in particular in the UK. And if you look at the area in the southwest, that's an area of key focus for us. Some of you may have seen in the news last week that Cornish Lithium launched a demonstration plant to produce lithium hydroxide. That's a first and interesting development in the UK. And then there are various tin and tungsten projects also in that part of the country. If you move further north, you'll find some interesting new prospects on refining, particularly again in lithium, alongside established refining opportunities, refining projects in nickel and platinum group metals and so forth. So we talked a bit about this already, but just to sort of emphasize that from a UK perspective, what we're doing on the mining space is very much linked to what we're doing with our industrial strategy. So the project that Cornish Lithium are launching, which I talked about just now, has backing from UK government, the UK Infrastructure Bank, but also if you look at the total potential of lithium production in the UK, could produce as much as 40 or 50% of domestic demand for gigafactories. So then through to the midstream, we have various existing refinery projects, nickel, platinum group metals that I've mentioned, but also a huge amount of innovation going into areas like rare earths, for example. The project that I've mentioned there, Hypromag, is an interesting spin-off from the University of Birmingham. And what they're doing is short loop recycling, taking old hard disk drives and extracting the rare earths from them so that they can be reused again. So really interesting stuff going on, and these things are entering into that kind of commercial stage of development. And then finally, right at the downstream, just to say that there's a big investment going on in the UK into the downstream industries, and perhaps one of the best examples is in the EV industry and the gigafactory space. That's a stock picture of an Agratas gigafactory, but there are a number of others in development in the UK as well. So looking a bit more at capabilities, we obviously, given the sort of heritage of the UK and the presence of various mining majors headquartered in London, there is a broad ecosystem that we are very keen to collaborate with partners internationally on. And that goes right the way from the exploration phase through to the early design works, the operations and the decommissioning of mine projects, of course, all underpinned by financing capability as well. And just to delve a little bit more deeply into a couple of the areas of expertise that I think are particularly strong in our economy, in our country. The first is around what our university sector does. These are just some of the examples of universities that are innovating and researching really interesting aspects of the critical mineral supply chain. A lot of these are around rare earths. It's partly because we drew these examples from a project that we're funding in that area, but how you can extract those rare earths from different pieces of technology that people have bought over the years and then just chucked away and forgotten what to do with. How many old phones do you have in your drawer at home, and how can you get the metals out of those for reuse? So a lot of really interesting stuff in that area. We've been talking to companies that are developing projects to extract metals from wastewater. Traditionally, wastewater is considered a cost. Can you monetize that and make value out of it again? So super interesting stuff coming from the university sector, and a lot of that's commercialized in the UK, but also with international partners as well. Finance, of course, another area we think is very strong in our economy, given the presence of the City of London and the mining finance community that exists around that. This is really a slide that just gives you a very high-level sense of some of the funding streams available from government. There are funding streams at the front end from Innovate UK. Prominent ones might include the Automotive Transformation Fund, has about £1 billion of funding to help the EV supply chain develop. The British Business Bank, which is more about SMEs, and more recently the UK Infrastructure Bank, which has now turned into the National Wealth Fund of the UK. So all of these are there to help at the early stage. Export finance is a big part of our toolkit as well, and we're looking to expand how we use export finance on mining projects in general around the world. And then there are other incentives, I think perhaps lesser known, but very important for the mining industry, that the supercharger program, which is there to subsidize energy costs for energy intensive industries. That's an important part of what we do. And the Faraday Battery Challenge, which is about how we can get skills and research in the battery sector at large. So all of that is kind of government. But then, of course, we have the City of London and what it offers to the mining community, and we can have a conversation about that. But that's something we're very keen to strengthen and grow and maintain that role internationally. Looking a bit internationally, I don't think we've really touched on this so far, but I think it's important to say that as well as all this domestic capability we're building, actually, Europe or UK is not going to have the capacity to meet all of its needs domestically, and therefore what we do with our partners is super important. So from our perspective, we've signed MOUs, bilateral agreements with 9 countries now, most recently Indonesia last month. And we're working quite closely in various multilateral fora to work together on how we can develop supply chains and supply chain resilience. The Mineral Security Partnership, I think, is perhaps worth mentioning. We think this is quite an interesting area. So working with partners there to see about how we can invest in projects internationally that help bring on stream more of these minerals and metals that we're going to need for the future. From a UK perspective, there are 2 projects on that list in the UK. One of them was the Hypermag project I mentioned. Another is the Pensana Rare Earths project that is also out there. But we're actively looking at how we can expand the list of projects and do more together with our partners to co-invest and to incentivize investment into mining projects internationally. And then the other part of what we offer to business is a role in helping you to connect with those opportunities or connect with partners internationally in various different ways and through events like this. So finally, just a little bit on the UK and Europe, and there's no particular logic to why I've picked these 3 boxes. But first of all, Europe is a pretty important partner to the UK. Those are the trade statistics, the most recent ones that we have. And that makes it very important to think about how the projects that we have can align with the projects that exist in the EU and how we can work together and collaboratively on building our collective security. So talk a bit about investment. I just picked the Anglo project in Finland, which I think is an interesting example. Just to say that the interconnectedness of our economies is large. And I think it's interesting as well in terms of that question about how can you get mining done in Europe, that there are these big projects out there and there are people actively investing in moving them forwards and doing them in an environmentally sustainable way. And then finally, collaboration, WSP, Canadian company, UK office, working on a project in Norway. I think, again, it's a good example of the global nature of the mining industry, which you all know very well, but also of how expertise in the UK can help support projects in Europe. So that's kind of, it's just a few of the headlines. I think it's really interesting for us as the UK to explore what are the synergies between UK and EU in particular. What does the Critical Raw Materials Act mean for UK? Are there opportunities for those strategic projects based in the UK and Europe to collaborate? Are there ways in which our various different investment tools could work together to bring on stream some of these projects more quickly? And what do we think about the targets that we set and so forth? So a lot of different things I think we can discuss in the EU context. I can see Mark looking at the monitor, which still says 2 minutes, Mark. I'm doing well. But I'll stop there, I think, because I've finished what I got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Oliver. So now from the range of the smoke, let's go to Finland with Lexi from the Geological Survey.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Happy to be here. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to talk a bit about the Finnish model of value chains and how the geology and geological research affects how the value chains are being created in a mining country like Finland. So first, just one slide, don't worry, about Geological Survey of Finland. We are the government organization similarly to any other geological survey in Europe, but we have a bit different operation model that we also do contracting with companies as well, and we work quite closely in collaboration with all the mining and exploration companies in Finland and also globally in different regions. And our driver is the energy transition and climate change and circular economy. That's what we aim to work around with. So, and another slide, which is a compulsory, that because my travel here was funded by the European Union by this project, which is closely related to this topic here, which we are addressing here in the first session with the other speakers as well, that we are trying to grow the industrial ecosystem around geology and mining in Finland, and especially in this project I'm working on with the industry and academia and educational organizations in Western Finland near the city of Kokkola, which I will show as one example in my presentation later on. One infamous industrial mogul called Jean-Paul Getty once said that the meek shall inherit the earth, but not its mineral rights. But I'm not saying here that we should be as ruthless as Mr. Getty was, but we should be as ambitious at least. And what I want to say is that we need to do a lot of hard work before we get to the building of the value chains and creating actual industrial activity around the geology and mineral potential we have in Europe. But at least one of the presenters already this morning mentioned mineral potential. But what mineral potential is, I think it needs to be defined here before I go deeper into the topic, is that the potential is that there is a set of geological attributes that contribute that certain minerals are being deposited in the bedrock. But it's also a matter of interpretation. The potential is related to the availability of geological data. If there's no data, there's no potential, even if the deposits would exist. And sometimes I see in political talks and public speech and in the press that this mineral potential is being mixed up with mineral resources and ore reserves. That's not true, of course, and I think it's all our responsibility to try to talk with the right terms. And of course, if you have the potential, it doesn't necessarily mean that it would lead to the economic extraction of said metals and minerals. You need a lot of different parameters to work with before you have the mine and the processing and other manufacturing around that geology. So I want to address one, which is from a geologist, of course, the importance of geological data. If you don't have the data available in a shareable, usable format for the exploration investments to come, it's difficult to create more data or to get to the mining project or get to a processing project in your region. And that's not just all. You need the data available, but you also need, I think Mark addressed in his talk, and also in the Portugal case, that the legislation regulatory framework needs to be attractive for exploration and mining investments to come. And we actually did research on how much the value we have gathered the geological data in Finland is, and it was a bit over 1 billion euros. So if we would start the gathering of that data now, today, it would cost a bit 1 billion euros, 1,300 million euros to get all that geophysical, geological data and all that interpretation to be available. And of course, it has taken us 140 years to get to this point. And in the most recent Fraser Institute survey, it still seems that Finland and Sweden are leading in the investment attractiveness index in Europe. And I saw I think it was Mark, you had the slides where the exploration investments in Europe were focused in Finland, Sweden, and then Serbia, right? Yes, good. So But maybe we will see, due to the CRMA, some changes in this course that also other regions will become more attractive in the scope, in the sense of exploration and mining investments. And it's not just about the data, it's also the physical sample material which creates the potential for exploration and mining investments to move forward. Since the beginning of times, or for over 100 years, we have gathered all the physical material as well in Finland, and this is something I would be more than happy to recommend to all geological surveys, that store and distribute the data and sample material you have, because this is an entry point for almost all exploration companies. When they come to Finland, they want to see the material what is available in their target region. And it doesn't end here. We just don't store the material. We also utilize new scanning and surveying methods to produce new data. And also when a company does their own analysis, we also store that. So we constantly create more available geological data to improve also future exploration investments. And I think it was also in Mark's slides, which were apparently excellent, that it's only one project out of 1,000 get into the mining project stage. But it was published some statistics by the Finnish Mining Authority that in the last 10 to 15 years, there has been 2,000 exploration licenses in Finland. And I think there was one mining project that came out of all those 2,000 licenses, which means that I'm not saying that the geology is bad, but I'm saying that it takes time and patience and a lot of money to get into the mining stage. Thanks to Mr. Harrington in the Natural History Museum of London, he had gathered a map of all the key mineral belts and mineral deposits in Europe, which is, I think, something that we Europeans ourselves have not been able to produce. But I think this is good. But what I'm trying to say with this image is that you can see that the density of mineral potential regions are higher in the regions where there is existing mining and exploration history until these days. It doesn't mean that there is no potential for critical minerals or other deposits in Italy or Switzerland. It just might mean that there is no data available of those deposits. If we look at the exploration expenditures in Finland, for example, we used to do explorations ourselves, but we have changed our strategy already starting in the 2000, that we opened up the geological data available for all companies to use and get to do their own study with them. And after we opened it up to be available for exploration companies, the exploration investments, you can see from the curve that it went higher during that stage. So just trying to underline the importance of geological data in attracting investments and creating industry and growth. And also up until recent years, it was mostly brownfield exploration around existing mine sites, but in the last 5 to 6 years, there has been more greenfield exploration in Finland. And also one remarkable thing is that even during COVID and after, when the exploration expenditure globally went down, we were able to keep the level even going higher in Finland. And another thing, this on the left-hand side, you can see the map with all the battery mineral deposits in Finland, known deposits, occurrences, and on the right-hand side you can see the current ecosystem around batteries and mineral processing. So it doesn't mean that if you have the deposits that there would be mines. It just might mean that no one has explored that much that they have actually gotten into an economic deposit at that time. I think the most recent number I read just last week was that the global average is about 16 years from discovery to mine opening. But if you look at, for example, the in the eastern Lapland, the Sokli deposit, now it's about 6 decades from the discovery, and it's still not in the mining stage. Or Sakatti, for example, which was mentioned just now in the UK presentation, has been about 20 years or so from discovery to maybe opening a mine in the next 5 to 6 years. And one example of an industrial ecosystem based on geological resources is the Kokkola Industrial Park, which facilitates about 80 companies with 2,400 employees and a 2.7 billion turnover on this site. And the most recent investment was by Southern African Sibanye Stillwater to a lithium hydroxide plant of 650 million euros, of which about maybe 50% was funded by the European Investment Bank Green Energy, Green Transition Fund, which was the first mineral-related project funded by European Investment Bank. And what's peculiar or an interesting detail of this site is that this is actually also a circular ecosystem, that many of the plants and sites are using their other plant wastes as the resource of products. One more thing, that this was founded in the 60s and 70s when they opened some mines with to produce chemical production and also sulfuric acid production. And one detail also is that this site here on this photo is the second largest cobalt refining site globally. About 12% of global cobalt is being refined here in Kokkola, just after China. And another, and one more thing was that there's a harbor here, so that's also beneficial for a site, but not to depress any of the landlocked countries or regions here. So another example from Eastern Finland, that they are producing the lowest carbon footprint in nickel production globally with bioleaching from black schist ore, and they also produce battery chemical for 1 million electric cars or Renault cars. And they have 1,900 jobs on site, and they have just opened also uranium side stream production here. And this region, mainly based on this single mine site and 2 other mines, is one of the fastest growing economies in Finland. Of course, the level which they started growing from wasn't very high, but they have been really fast growing. There's also data centers and all that stuff going on in that region. And one blind spot I would like to address also in the value chain of minerals, as I said, that in the Kokkola region they use the waste as a material in that single site, is that usually when we see this picture, it usually leaves out exploration, but also in the parts of mining and processing, the waste streams are illustrated too small. They are one of the largest streams of material being produced, and they are considered waste at this time. But I would personally like to see a change in thinking, that these waste streams would be started to consider as a resource more and more. Since in the 90s, for example, the forest industry was able to make that change, that they started to produce products instead of wastes. I believe that we are able to do that in mining as well if we change our thinking. And about why is it important not just to produce mines or concentrates? Actually, it seems that, my apologies, that we are colonizing apparently Portugal, since most of the copper was brought to Kokkola or Pori to be refined. But just illustrating here that if you sell lithium concentrate, it has a certain price, but if you produce carbonate or hydroxide from that lithium, the price goes tenfold and the value is tenfold. Same thing with graphite or nickel sulfide, cobalt sulfide, zinc sulfide. And if you would produce battery cells from those materials, then the value is again tenfold. For example, the site Terrafame, if the value of that battery chemical production is about half of the forestry industry in Finland. But if they would produce, or if we would be able to produce battery cells from all those battery chemicals, it would exceed the forest industry from one single mine. And this report is something worth reading outside the Nordics as well, the Nordic Battery Value Chain report from 2023. There's some key points that were already addressed in the beginning of this session, that, for example, the public framework, public support, supply of green energy, strategic partnership, availability of competence, and access to raw materials are the most important things mentioned by the industry to be able to grow. Thank you.
Alexei, thank you very much. I must declare a personal experience, both a very pleasant working experience with GTK and sitting on the board of a company that's actually received money from the UK to proceed in its research and development. So I've enjoyed working with both of your colleagues. Thank you both very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a little time for questions. It would be wonderful if I didn't have to use the prepared questions, because I'll ask a lot of them and you won't get your coffee. So I would suggest one or two of you put your hands up, tell us your name, who you work for. Please don't read prepared statements. Simple questions or observations are very welcome. And Mike, if you raise your hand, I believe a microphone is ready to fly to you in a moment. So please don't be shy, otherwise you're going to wait for your coffee. Come on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. My name is and I'm curious to hear about color composition mining. It was mentioned in the four presentations from different countries that to understand that is crucial. So how, for instance, Finland, how are you managing to be so attractive? Despite we also are facing color composition mining. I wonder also all the other activities. Thank you.
So, Alexei?
Okay, thank you. There is public opposition for mining and also for exploration in Finland, which is due to the environmental regulation, for example, in the 80s, which has caused some issues like acid drainage from mine sites. But usually, I think has been surveys done for the locals who live around mine sites or mine projects or exploration projects. The locals are not so much against. They are more or less like on a waiting stage to maybe see if there is economic benefits for them or how will it go. But the opposition mainly comes from somewhere else. For example, people who come to spend their vacation or leisure time in that region, especially concerning certain Lapland-related projects, which is a very popular vacation destination, even globally considered. So, but I think it's more or less an opportunity for the mining and exploration industry to also consider on what arguments and what basis we are doing our work. I think it's an opportunity to rethink that how we argument on in favor of our operations and rethink that are we actually doing the right things. Since in my mind, for example, the word social license to operate is not a value itself, it's rather the result of certain correct actions done during the exploration and mining stages.
We have representatives in various countries, so I suggest, I'm no particular order. Maria, would you like to respond from your experience?
Yeah, we do have public composition, but usually we only have in regions where we don't have mining tradition. In regions where we do have mines, like in the south, people are not opposed to new projects because they are well aware of the benefits that the industry can bring. But regions where it's new, where it's, there is some public opposition, I think that we all need to work on that. We need to include people in the projects from the beginning. It's very difficult if we arrive to the a ready project and say we have it here, and we don't let the participation to the engagement of people. So we need to work with people. We cannot. There is a lot of in other countries, but in Portugal we are very connected with our land, with the property. People have small property, are very connected with that. So we need to work on the values of the land, and we need, well, actually, we have a mine which in the south where a natural reserve was created after the mining installation. So the mine, the project is inclusive as participating on this new natural reserve. So there is, we can be able, companies and also of course companies can help to show people that there is conflict of interest, but that we can conjugate, or I don't know the proper word in English, but we can all live in the territory and use the territory without conflict. Okay, we can share the territory, but we need to show that. Otherwise, they will be scared, and of course, there are always outsiders. We have a lot of I don't know if we in Portugal, we have a lot of foreigners living there because it's sunny, so a lot of people comes to live in the nature, and many times it comes also from foreign people, this kind of opposition. But we need to show people that it's possible to have both activities, all the activities in the territory, and to have this conciliation together. But it's not easy.
Oliver, Yaroslav, would you like to comment?
Yeah. As was mentioned by two press speakers, we have also problem with creating mines in the area where never be such a mineral mined, and also main obstacle in Czech Republic is the duration of environmental impact assessment study. This is something maybe anomalous, anomaly in Czech Republic, because such a study can be prolonged till few years, and I hope that new Critical Raw Minerals Act will help to decrease the duration of such a permission, and it will be more, we can say, supportive for prospectors and miners. It is very interesting that in some area we have nice tourist area in Krušné hory, Erzgebirge Mountains, and also bigger obstacle is the discussion with people who are coming for vacation than people who are locally binded to the land or properties in that area. But I think this is the problem. We can discuss about it very long time, and so what is very important to start, maybe to start proper time before opening the new project or continuing project, because understanding is very important, and it's time-consuming procedure. Till now, we didn't found universal access how to solve this problem. Yeah. But we expect that new act about critical raw minerals will help us. Thank you.
Oliver, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I think just briefly, one of the interesting things about the UK projects is that they're on existing mine sites from hundreds of years ago. So actually, if you can find a project like that, there's a big advantage to developing it because your environmental footprint is that much smaller to start with. So some of the Cornwall projects that I mentioned are in that category. I think that's really interesting. The other thing I suppose I would say is looking more broadly across Europe, one of the big projects we sometimes look at is the Rio Tinto project in Serbia. The back and forth on that, I think, is a really interesting case study. If you talk to the company, they'll tell you, well, we've had to basically staff up a whole PR, corporate affairs sort of function in our team to manage the hundreds of thousands of messages we're getting on social media every day about this project. You know, as a company going into that kind of project, you've got to be really prepared, I think, to that extra transparency, I think, that exists now around that consent question. And I think, as some of the speakers were saying, is you can't just kind of bumble into this project. You have to prepare the ground well, so that when you're ready to make a move on it, that everything is, you have the answers to as many of the questions as possible.
Thank you, Oliver. Just as perhaps a final comment from me, because Arthur is approaching. Sometimes this question has been framed as it's the end of the world versus the end of the month. People have got to eat, people have lives to live, but at the same time they don't want to see their homes and their futures threatened by something they don't understand. So information, transparency, what Alexis said in terms of making things normal and accessible. You know, what the hell are we doing in Europe? You know, the whole European Union is founded upon transparency, human rights and the rule of law. All of those things are relevant to mining projects. If we do things properly, then we have a better chance of making mining part of everyday life and not seen as a challenge to everyday life. But as an amusing example, my mother-in-law is from the island of Chios. Chios is a famous island for two things: chewing gum, which is horrible, I don't recommend it, and ship owners. And so ship owners need money. They don't want tourists because they've got plenty of money. Remember that. So recently, a tender was called for the revival of old antimony mines in Chios. So my mother-in-law comes bursting through the door. "You bloody miners! What are you doing? You want to bring anti-money to my island? We have money. We don't want to lose money. What is this anti-money stuff? We don't want it." So a little bit of calm, a little bit of explanation, a little bit of discussion. Oh, maybe it's not so bad. Can we see another mine in action? It didn't take very long. Okay, I know that she's my mother-in-law, but it didn't take very difficult. You can persuade people by best practice, by good examples, by relating their concerns to what we do. It's not impossible. We do it every day. A lot of you do it really well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to us. I will allow you to go to the coffee because Arthur will be very upset with me otherwise. Thank you very much.